Machines are one of man's greatest interventions in the plight to improve their existence. They are an intricate modern invention that consists of interrelated components with separate functions used to achieve an objective. For a machine to work optimally, however, another machine needs to be affiliated, attached, or integrated. The University of St. Martin operates like a machine within St. Martin. In 1989, the machine started as an expansion of Johnson & Wales University, a few years later evolving into the University of St. Martin. It has more than 300 full and part-time students enrolled. The Department of Communication spoke to the president of the University of St. Martin, Dr. Francio Gaudeloupe, on this machine called USM and on his academic background.
I was born in Aruba, so I grew up in Aruba for a while. Then I came to St. Martin, lived in Dutch Quarter, they call it DQ nowadays, on St. Martin. Then I left for the Netherlands, lived perhaps most of my life in the Netherlands, and then did a bachelor's in community development, did a master's in development studies, and then did a PhD in social and cultural anthropology. So that's my academic background, yeah. I had been working at various universities in the Netherlands, so the last university was the University of Amsterdam. Before that I worked at the Radboud University. I did a stint as a visiting professor at the Erasmus University. I worked in Leiden University. And one day, whilst I was going to take a subway, a tube, I met Valerie Gitterson-Pantoflet, the president of the board of the University of St. Martin. And she said, "Hello, hey, how are you doing? When are you coming back to help us build this country now that we have country status? We need persons like you to come back." So, without thinking, I told her, you know, I'm busy writing an article now, and I'm busy with the research. As soon as I finish that, I promise you I will actually call you. I will send an email and I will come back to St. Martin to actually contribute, even if it's for a while. And since when I make promises, I try to keep them. When I finished, I called her and I was busy with a book for the National Development Plan of St. Martin. So then I met, and from one came the other. So last year I actually came as the Dean of Academics here.
Dr. Gaudeloupe then explains what type of institution USM should be based on historical situation analysis.
The USM is not that kind of a university. It is actually a developmental university. And I think it's a developmental university because it's a university in a part of the world where the majority actually were either experienced the slavocratic regime or the indentured labor regime, or there was a genocide. I mean, that happened here. So you have a large part of the population that did not get a fair and honest chance. Now, a developmental university says our concern is a concern for everyone that is here, and everyone should actually have equal opportunities, and we should create the equal conditions. That does not mean that you will have equal outcomes, but if you create the equal conditions, then every individual will have a chance to flourish, regardless of their station in life. So University of St. Martin is part of the commons, as it's called, the common inheritance of a society. Those things that belong to everyone. The beaches belong to everyone. A university is one of those spaces that should belong to everyone, because there's where the common life is built. That's the kind of university the University of St. Martin is actually, that's what it's about. It's returned to those roots. I am the Dean of Academics, and I hold also the interim presidency of the university. Well, you have the board, and the board actually commandeers the university. Under the board, you have then the president, the dean, and the manager of facilities and finances. These three persons are employed directly by the board. And under that, you have division heads, the division head of education, of general liberal arts, of the business programs, and of hospitality. And under that, you have then the auxiliary staff, so the registrar, the persons at the student service center, others at the finance department, secretaries, the event manager, and then you have the faculty that primarily instructs students. As of last year, the board has become extremely active. So we have a kind of a board that actually also participates in the running of the USM. Now, there has always been this longer idea, understanding that you should not micromanage. And that idea to me creates a kind of dualism that either you are far away or you micromanage. But there's a third position. The third position is actually the position where a board participates in the development of a university. And that's the position that the board of the USM now actually takes, which makes the lines shorter, and which actually acts exactly what a university should be, a democratic institution where those that hold most power are not extremely far away and unreachable. They understand because they're close by. I mean, many people mention Churchill and they say democracy is the best of all the imperfect systems. But he also said, actually, with democracy, the politicians only meet the voters for 2 minutes, so they're far away. So how do you make that better? You make it better by actually making sure that all the lines are close to one another.
He further explains about the student body attending USM.
Well, if you look at it in terms of gender, you would say actually the majority, 2/3, are female. And that has to do with a whole set of reasons that you can go into. It has to do with what is called the feminization of the labor force. The service sector was traditionally the sector of women, and therefore you see that reflected nowadays and trade was the sector of men. And a university was not a place where persons learned to craft. So you see that playing itself out. Other part of it is, if you look at it ethnically, then the University of St. Martin is a multi-ethnic place. We have persons whose grandparents were already on St. Martin, and persons whose mothers and fathers came to St. Martin, or persons who were born elsewhere but actually are now living on St. Martin. So a mix of various persons as far as ethnicity is concerned. If you look at it in terms of age groups, then you would say many persons who enter the labor force and work in the daytime or in the morning time, they come to the university in the evening time to follow courses. So the university consists of persons who have scholarships and persons who are actually already in the professions. 60 to 65% of the population of St. Martin graduates with a TKL or a PKL degree, that is the former MAVO, or they graduate with CXC, but not with a diploma, with certificates. Now, if you have such a large percentage of your population graduating there, you have to do something with that group. So what we have done is we've said we recognize that because St. Martin has become almost a 24/7 economy, many parents cannot be at home to actually offer their kids the proper upbringing so that they can continue. Or because of all kinds of social circumstances, it doesn't have to do with the cognitive level of, or the cognitive capacity of these students. So the PreUSM program is a program within 1 year to actually prepare them for university life. Within 1 year, they actually gain a HAVO level. And then they can enter the university because then they've done their GED, they've done 9 skills courses, from courses such as pre-algebra to pre-physical science to social science, and then they're ready. And then they can actually apply for a scholarship if need be, or they can continue because at least they now have a proper high school degree. They are properly prepared to excel. That's something that we're trying to do, because the new mission statement of the university states actually that we're going to try at least to have in each household someone that holds an associate degree. That's the mission statement, so that's our goal. If on St. Martin you have in every household someone that holds an associate degree, you have an educated population. And you need an educated population in a time that people call internationalization. What we're trying to do now, again, there's two streams. One stream is that you have students that 65% that are graduating with a 10th grade degree, and you need a 12th grade degree to actually enter the university. We're saying with the PreUSM program, going to the high schools, telling persons who are doing MPC or Sundial or even St. Dominic's but not finishing on the right level, hey, you can come to the USM. Within a year, you actually will be on that level once you actually put in your 100%. That's one mode of doing it, and we're partnering with the Department of Study Financing and the Chamber of Commerce so that these students actually know there's a route after I finish my PreUSM. I can try to get study financing, and there's also job placement, job training with the businesses via the Chamber of Commerce. Another route, that's for the group that finished 10th grade. There's another stream of persons who finish HAVO or finish their CXCs, have their CXC diploma. That group, some of them are very young as well. So again, with that group, because of the question of adolescence, we are trying to remind parents and them, hey, you can do 2 years at the USM. It doesn't mean that you're not going to go away. You are going to go away, but you're going to go away more prepared. You will know what it means to actually study at a university. Studying at a university is a very different kind of operation than actually studying at high school. You might be an ace when you're in high school, but suddenly when you have to do it on your own, it becomes much more difficult. When no one actually looks around, when there's not a regurgitating or not 3 times an exam until you actually make it, but it's once and you have to make it, all those types of things.
USM has several programs and articulation agreements that make going to the institution attractive to students who want to pursue higher learning.
So we have an Associates in Business Information Management, an Associates in Business Management, an Associates in Accounting, and an Associates in General Liberal Arts, and one more in Hospitality and Tourism Management. We are now choosing to do Associates because we're saying this is the age of articulations. So you have to make sure that the persons on St. Martin can articulate, or we as an institution can articulate with institutions abroad. That means that anyone that enters now the business program of the USM, they get also a letter from the president of Monroe College in New York, stating that now you are also enrolled with Monroe College, and all you have to do to make this partial enrollment a full enrollment is graduate the USM with a GPA, your associates, of 2.5. Now that's not miraculous. The same kind of arrangement we have with Johnson & Wales University for the hospitality. We have it for education with the University of the Virgin Islands, and they are becoming far more active, so probably in the future they will really be here on the island. And one with FAMU for the general liberal arts. So a person who says, you know, I want to study chemistry, or I want to study political science. That person then does their associates with general liberal arts with us, and then they go on 2 years to Tallahassee to specialize and become that chemist, or become that biologist, or become that political scientist or psychologist, or so forth.
These programs and agreements are crucial in offering benefits to the students.
Well, if you take age as an indicator, or generations as an indicator, oftentimes when students finish high school, they are 16, 17. So you're in a period of adolescence. You're in a period actually of, how should we say, finding your way in the world. Trying to ask yourself, so what do I want to be? How do I want to be? With whom do I want to associate myself? How do I want to be seen? So that's a turbulent period, of course, because that's a period of a lot of experimentation. If you go abroad, oftentimes when persons go abroad at that age, they're still busy experimenting, and you enter a new environment where you do not have some of the support to help you in that process. And then you see that many students change studies, or they drop out, etc. If you actually stay those 2 years at the USM, then you've gone through that period. You've been able to taste or test the waters in various kinds of ways, academically, and you're better prepared mentally, spiritually, and also, how should we put it, educationally, to be able to excel when you go abroad. That's one of the reasons that I think it matters. Another reason for persons who are a bit older is that when you actually are at the USM, You're at a place where the instructors understand your lived condition. If you move somewhere else where the persons do not necessarily know about St. Martin, they've probably heard about it, if they've heard about it, that's a very different kind of environment. You become a number. I remember when I went to the Netherlands and I was at Nijmegen, while St. Martin is part of the kingdom, very few persons knew where St. Martin was. It was of little consequence, really. So for many persons, I was the Surinamese, not really understanding, or the Antillean, and the Antillean was the Curaçao person, with all the things that they believe go with that, and they would ask me about that. These are the things that you then experience.
Dr. Gaudeloupe explains the reasons USM in the past did not have any agreements or working relationships with educational institutions in the Netherlands, but are now engaging with the Dutch on different research projects and training programs.
That is because the USM was created as a dependance of Johnson & Wales University. So it was created as an American or an Anglo-styled university. And for a very long time, I mean only now we're seeing this kind of integration, for a very long time the Dutch system was not based upon masters and bachelors. It was based upon HBO and universiteit. So it was much more difficult to make the link with a Dutch school. Now, because the Netherlands is part of the EU, and because you have to actually create some kind of convergence in the EU educationally, they have introduced since a couple of years the BAMA system, the master-bachelor system. And they have then, so you don't have persons graduating with doctoranders, because doctoranders was something that in the US no one understood exactly what that was. A doctor, but then an anders, a doctor something. So we did not have any relationships with that. The USM was actually a university that was geared to the US or geared to the region, having relationships with the University of the Virgin Islands, or with the UNA, which we still have. The UNA is now the University of Curaçao, which we still have a relationship with. There's also a political component to it. Up until you had the Dutch Antilles as a federation only had one official university. And that official university was the UNA, the University of the Netherlands Antilles. So whatever else you had as universities, they were considered private matters. So which means that the relationship with Dutch universities was the relationship between the UNA, which was the University of the Netherlands Antilles, with Dutch universities. If you consider USM part of the commons, the common inheritance of everyone, that collectively belongs to everyone, then, and it's also a safeguard to actually for people to remember the commons, then one of the things is the USM has to prepare also most St. Martiners for what is called the future that's coming. We live on a hospitality island. We have to ask ourselves continuously what is going on worldwide. Now we have focused on the US, which is good because the US has achieved a kind of recovery from the global meltdown or the economic meltdown. But there is a space in the other part of the world that is growing exponentially. That's China, for instance. China is now, wherever you have economic growth, you have a middle class. And a characteristic of the middle class is that they are inquisitive, so they like to travel. I've now realized that, so we look at the USM and then we say, wait a minute, Barbados now has a charter flight from China to Barbados with those tourists. Then we think, how do we make sure that St. Martin, which is also an hospitality island, is not left behind? So what we've done is we've contacted the Chinese Merchant Association of St. Martin. We've said, how can we actually work upon this? Because it's partially integration with each other in this society, but also preparing for that future. And together with them, we've organized a course in Mandarin. Because if these persons are going to come, the Chinese middle class is not necessarily fluent in English, most of them. Many of them still speak Mandarin only or one of the other Chinese languages. So this course in Mandarin, which is supposed to start the 8th of April, will actually help people to learn the basics of Mandarin because you have to prepare a population for that new future.
After speaking about the research projects USM has with the Dutch universities, Dr. Gaudeloupe elaborates on the role that USM plays in society.
I think asking for something without reciprocating is not the way to go. So in talking about reciprocity, what we've done is we've said, how can we offer you courses that are academically sound, but are built content-wise that you can use it immediately, practice it in your company. So we created a special program, specialized certificates for business management for St. Martin professionals. What we've done is we've said to businesses, we recognize that St. Martin grew exponential economically. What did not grow was the educational resourcefulness of the population, so you have a gap there. With these specialized certificates, you can actually bring your personnel in. They can get certain courses at the USM. When they get these courses, they get credits, so it's tied to credits. It's not simply a training, but it's tied to credits. And once they have 67 credits, they can actually trade that in for an associate's degree. And because we have these articulations, if that person 5 years from now say, you know, I think I want to gain my bachelor's, they know that there are places, other universities that accept all those credits and they can gain their bachelor's. Now, the Windward Island Bank was one of the first that did it, and we just finished with them. They actually paid for their middle management to actually get 12 or courses of the equivalent of 12 credits at the USM. Now, if you count 12 credits and you recognize you need 67 to gain a associate's degree, that means 1/5 that bank said, I'm going to sponsor you as middle management to take these courses. We had Dr. Gittens, Natasha Gittens, and Erwin Wolthuis, who's the division head of the business program. Those two met with those 20 employees of the WIB, and they gave courses in finances, in accounting, and we just had a ceremony for that group. Another important player is, of course, the SHCA. With the SHCA, we are now actually busy with an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, because if you have tourism, and if tourism is your business and hospitality matters, then you actually want to make sure that the persons who work in these businesses know about customer service and understand it and have a sense of, hey, I can grow. So with the SHCA, we are partnering because education has to be the most important thing. It's your human capital nowadays, which makes a difference. If everyone is heading for hospitality, the only difference, which will be a difference, is that if persons come in here and they meet someone who treats them well, who they remember, who they say, hey, I can send that person a card again because I'm coming back. How so-and-so that I met in this hotel or in this business? That's what will matter. And that person has to understand customer service, but the person has to be schooled as well. So that we're doing with the SHCA and with, lastly, with the government of St. Martin, because the gap between growth, economics, and education is not only a matter of the business sector, it's also a matter in the civil service. Many people left high school and they entered the civil service, and they gained a lot of competencies. What they did not gain was their degree to go with the company.
In order to determine how and what university is or should be, one has to understand St. Martin's society and what other universities are in the region. Dr. Gaudeloupe explains.
When I came to St. Martin, I said we have to understand St. Martin different than understanding and saying you have a French part and a Dutch part, or a northern part and a southern part, because that's more geography. You have to ask yourself, what kind of society is it? So I've said we have to divide the Caribbean in 3 kinds of standards. You have the white gold societies, the black gold societies, and the Visa card gold societies. The white gold societies are societies that are primarily agro-based, agricultural-based. That's the dominant standard. That indicates how people live in those societies. When you go to Dominica, that's a white gold society. And it's different than Barbados, which also was British, but Barbados is not a white gold society. Barbados will resemble St. Martin, which is a Visa card gold society. It's hospitality based. It has a particular kind of dynamic. Therefore, you have all kinds of fast foods and so forth. When you're in Dominica, you can't find fast food. And then you have the black gold societies. These are societies that are primarily industrial based. So bauxite and oil, Trinidad and parts of Jamaica, parts of Curacao, they resemble each other. They have a particular kind of dynamic, and education in those societies should be linked to the kinds of standards you have. So on St. Martin, we have to make hospitality our flagship. We have to, when we're doing the teacher education program, we have to take into account that parents work longer. So the kind of teacher you need is a different kind of teacher in a hospitality-based society than a society that is primarily black gold. They have a different rhythm of what kind of school teacher you need. Oftentimes these black gold societies were societies where the father was the primary breadwinner. So the teacher could presuppose, I want to see your mother at school. And nowadays, the mother is working, so you can't say, I want to see your mother at school. You have to recognize that this is a different kind of society. So it's about that. It's about recognizing what the society is and you adapting to it, but also actually creating adaptations for that society.
Dr. Gaudeloupe envisions the university improving the standard of operation and being a beacon for the St. Martin community.
Well, I would like us to step up our quality, because that's always important. You have to make sure your quality, and you always have to seek to improve, to better, to adapt to the times. That we offer sometimes what is called contract education with businesses and with government, that we offer the regular kind of education for the citizens of this island and the inhabitants of this island, and thirdly, that people become more proud of the USM. It's a sign of patriotism when you can say, that's my university, I support it. It's a sign of a weakened kind of patriotism when you only are able to critique an institution, but never say, okay, I critique it, but what can I now contribute to make it better because it is part of my society? That means it's part of me. So that is what I'd like to see.
In conclusion, USM serves the community and aims to increase the human capital, offering quality career training to participants in their chosen professions and excellent education, teaching to students in their academic studies to improve the quality of life for humanity on St. Martin, Saint Martin, the Caribbean region, and the world.